Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Wes Warren. I'm here with Greg Stanley, and today we're going to talk about benchmarking leaders. And what does that mean, first of all? Let me explain. A lot of people want to have something that they hold, I guess, the leader accountable to. Usually it's based on collections, and a lot of people want us to talk about when do I raise it up? How quick do I raise it up? What's a number that I should pick? That's the threshold. How long until I change it? And if I change it, how fast should I change it? All these things come up. And then what do I do if they don't hit it? Greg, there's just a ton of different permutations of how to use this. What is the most effective ways to do these kind of things?
Well, Wes, these are good questions. One of the things we look at is the high evolution of what's possible. In other words, some leaders, we call them leaders, but they're really not. uh, in other words, when things get tough, we step in, the doctor steps in and has to handle everything. To me, it's really fully evolved when it's very seldom that we have to go to the doctor directly and get a bunch of things solved. So let's just look at what I would call the key elements.
Okay.
One, you're right, productivity, production, the production goal, which should be inspired by how many operatories and how many staff. In other words, what's possible.
Mhm.
Number two, profitability. Some leaders are real good at production, but they spend too much. They've got weak staff, they leave them in place and are forced to keep buying patients through marketing in great numbers. When in truth, if they really got their staff up to speed, it wouldn't be like that. So, one, production goal, two, profitability goal, and the third is one that doctors don't really like to talk about, but it's there, it's real. It's the drama factor. How much drama are they bringing into the scene? Some leaders are running around literally like they're on fire through the practice, like they're behind the curve on everything. Like, oh my gosh, we need to add a staff person. Oh, I forgot marketing. We got to do our marketing. In other words, how together are they on delivering these goals? So, production, profitability, stress free, low drama delivery is a big thing. Now, I think that a lot of the other things that we're going to talk about are appendages to this. For example, they're staffed in such a way they're not caught off guard, meaning they got ads running, and if they don't have ads running, they have sources they know to go to quickly bring in and train staff, or maybe even bring in trained staff. Number two, do they have their finger on the pulse of patient satisfaction? What I would call the referral culture. Is this practice all about buying patients and then sorting through them like we're on an assembly line and it's potatoes that were too small, we throw them back. Patients that don't buy goods, so we just let them go. Number three, are staff engaged, meaning fully focused? You'll know what I'm talking about if you've ever been in a practice where the doctor has stepped away with a patient. Everyone knows the doctor's going to be gone for 20 minutes, and everybody whips out their phones, starts texting, scanning the internet. In other words, they're not really focused. In fact, it's not uncommon when we reach that state where everybody's kind of messing with their phones or making personal calls or whatever. When a patient shows up, the patient almost seems to be an interruption to what I'd really like to be doing. Next, staff are following what I call a predetermined culture, and the leader is benchmarked by how well they enforce that culture. If they allow some people, maybe a doctor's favorite, maybe a new staff person, maybe an incredibly talented staff person, to break culture, I kind of put that on the leader. finally, number 5 would be an enjoyable environment. In other words, where the doctor doesn't come out between patients and just chew somebody up and spit them out all day long. They go through the leader. The leader brings into account all the facts of the situation and then weighs in with maybe some discipline or correction. So these are some of the things we use to benchmark a leader. Are we reaching our production goals? Are we doing it profitably? Because, I really think a lower grade of leader can reach production goals if profit isn't an issue. We'll just buy patients, we'll just buy expensive, already trained staff, and have the stress-free drama, low drama I'm talking about. And you're not going to have that if the leader isn't on top of everything. If she's running behind with hiring, with marketing, getting back to patients that weren't happy about something, dealing with an associate that really kind of messed up and doing it right away, as opposed to waiting 2 weeks and addressing it where they'll think, what are you talking about? I don't remember anything like that. So these are the key issues that I see, Wes. You can either add to them or expand on them, whichever.
How would you say, as far as like setting, like if we were to talk about the production one, because I think most people, that's the one that they really want to nail down. What's a good goal to set a threshold? So a lot of our bonus systems work as the office manager's got to hit some kind of collection goal before they get a bonus of a certain percentage of that collections. How do you set that? How do you set that up? How's that work, and how do you change that going forward? Like, is that a number that never changes?
Well, it's a percentage as we see it, meaning we spend about 3.5% to 4% total on all bonus. That includes leadership pay. That's leadership bonus, excuse me. All of that is 4% or less. And by the way, it will take that to get all this working smoothly. So if you try to shortcut this, you'd probably be better off not anesthetizing people. In other words, somebody's going to scream. Some thoughts on this is how easy a leader makes it look. I had a doctor actually tell me that the leader brought so much drama to the table, always telling him how she had saved him from disaster, pulled together a miracle at the last minute by having her sister-in-law come in. And in other words, she was always performing a miracle and wanted to be acknowledged as such. So reaching goals isn't the whole thing. I would say it's okay to start there. Let's hit our production goal, and then work on profitability, and then start doing it without so much drama. That's where I would build this thing.
Okay, so you start with a production or collection goal, and then you look at a profitability goal. And so those things, people go, well, it gets confusing because I write stuff off. And so you want to look at them maintaining three main things. So lab supply and staff costs, non-doctor staff costs. That's something that they can look at and manage and have influence over. And you can certainly bonus them or have a benchmark that they have to achieve in those areas. The percentage has to be below a certain amount. As far as setting a production goal, usually to qualify for a leadership bonus, they need to hit 10% above where the practice is now. In some cases, 20%. So it's going to definitely be in that range of where we want them to be. Like you said, once you kind of got that in place, you move to benchmarking a little bit of the profitability stuff, managing costs. And then finally, it's how well is it done? What's the environment like? Are we creating a culture that's, like you said, pre-established culture? And you hear different words, the buzzwords would be, our core values, establishing how we do things, how we operate. Do we have a can-do, core value, can-do attitude? We work everything in as much as possible. These are things that you would want to really establish. And you want to have, obviously, your management, your leader, absolutely make sure that that's happening throughout the practice and creating that culture. That would be the final benchmark. I mean, there's other, you can always benchmark everything, you know, everything could have a benchmark to new patients and everything. But I would say those are the big three. So if you're driving collections, you're driving profit, and you're doing it in a style that you can be proud of, let's put it that way. Good quality, you know, all the things that you decide as your core values. You're checking a lot of the boxes as a leader. Let's just put it that way. And so those three things are the things that I certainly would focus on.
Being proactive versus reactive is so big. We even had somebody working once at Whitehall. It was so reactive. They ran around the clinic. We don't have a clinic. They ran around our office, just frantic, solving one problem. In other words, everything had to go through this person, as opposed to getting people trained up and authorized to solve problems on their own. So we're looking for people to solve things as much as possible long term, not reactive, like, oh, this, and it's just a solution for the moment. If you do that, first of all, you're completely dependent upon that person. And second, it really limits your growth, because she can't, I don't care how good she is, she can't do everything all the time, all at once. It's just not possible.
In this scenario, there's a carrot. There has to be some kind of bonus or something that they get for achieving this. So you've got to set that up. And with leaders, we're typically bonusing them somewhere around 0.5% to upwards of 1% of the practice, as long as these metrics are achieved. Certainly the first two that I talked about. And you can set, is it 0.5% or a full percent? That's dependent on the profitability you have currently. And you set the target 10% above where you're at, and that kind of all works out. Now, the stick, so that's the carrot, right? The stick would be, hey, you got to hit this number. So how long do we go? At some point, you got to make it serious, right? You can't have idle threats. Certainly, you don't want to lose a good person, but there has to be some sort of stick. So first would be losing the bonus as one stick. But at what point do you start questioning their effectiveness as a leader, and then maybe in deciding, is this the right role for them?
You
Do
know
we
what?
wait 3 months? Do we wait 6 months?
When you get it going really slick, when everything looks good, when they're not reactive, they're proactive, they're on top of everything, we tend to do it in 90 days. In other words, if we miss our target in 90 days, there's a stern warning. Hey, this is our target. It's not just that we're all greedy businessmen. It's that we've invested $1.8 million in a clinic and equipment, and we got a dozen staff, and we got all these things, and we're putting them at this person's mercy. And so if they don't do their job with vigor, we give them a warning, and then we're going to put somebody else in that position. And it's kind of, I just want to bring this up. It's kind of sad, but putting this person down back into production versus leadership hasn't worked out very well. In other words, they were once leaders and now they're not. Yeah, I'm open to discussing that with somebody, but it has not typically worked. They're usually gone in 3 months, they quit. Or it becomes an issue. They'll start to form a faction, and we have problems. So
That's new leadership, right?
yeah, these are some of the things. I'll tell you honestly, Wes, a lot of people that do this right, as I see it, don't stumble into this and start building it from scratch. They'll come to a meeting that we put on and they'll adopt a lot of culture, a lot of systems from other successful practices. The leaders become less and less tolerant of staff that aren't engaged. In other words, they slowly bring that up to start yielding the payoff of a well-run practice, which is, like you said, production, profit, and a great environment.
Right.
So it's okay to borrow some of that from other people.
This is something you definitely want to talk with one of us about, one of your consultants. either Greg, myself, or Dr. Peterson, iron this out. Do we got it correct? Do I have these metrics correct? Do I need to set up a profitability one that's separate? Set the targets, get the bonus dialed in just right so that there's a carrot, and obviously 90-day evaluations is the stick.
Can I just comment on what we run into a lot of the times is an office that at one time, everything was being done as bad as it could be done. Chaotic, negative, backbiting, all the bad stuff. And then they hire this one person who seems to be different. They shine. And we make that person, we crown that person the queen of the office. And we kind of stop there. Okay, we got one good person. You'll never enjoy the power of an office that can drive associates, get patient satisfaction, make profitability, until you can get somebody to inspire all the staff. This idea of one great person, that's almost meant for one doctor and one or two staff, you know.
Right, right. You got to get a few, certainly got to get a few, if
Yeah.
not a bunch, you know? Yeah. As far as it goes with how you address this, is this a formal meeting at the end of the quarter? Where you evaluate how we did and you go over the metrics and the benchmarks?
Just a few things. Number one, make it real clear to the leader or leaders what it is you're going to evaluate them on. Don't keep that a mystery.
Right.
When it gets there, listen closely to whether they give excuses or own the problems. Now, some of them know they can claim to own it, but really they're not fixing it. If they own it, they should be fixing it. We don't do excuses. That's a big thing. We want them to own it. And what you can't do is be guilty of some complication yourself. You, the doctor, cannot favor one employee or show up late or fail to sell the dentistry or drag it out or leave early, or there's any number of problems you can bring to the story. But if you hold up your end, you really can put the focus on them and they'll step up. That's how we do it. That's how we start it. And it's always kind of scary for Wes and I to tell you, the doctor, hey, you're why she's not leading, because you keep stepping in or you keep doing this or that. So right now, as you listen to this, do a quick evaluation of yourself. Try to make sure you're not in the mix.
Yeah, there's a 50-50 chance, essentially, it's you. Both parties like to point at each other, right? So your leader will quietly point at you as being the problem. They might not tell you that, but they'll quietly say it's all your fault. And you'll sometimes not so quietly say it's all their fault. It's my team, it's them. And this is why it's helpful to get perspective from a third party that'll tell you honestly, here's what's holding you back. And if it is you, that's what we do. We would tell you, you're the problem. You need to fix this. You're not doing this. You know, this culture thing is very, very important in creating a practice that thrives. So a lot of the production and actually patient to patient referrals actually comes from this cohesive environment that a practice has through its culture. Sometimes the biggest offender is the doctor of destroying that. If that's the case, you know, take that serious, that challenge, you know, like be the best employee of the practice, be the one that exemplifies of the core values you decide on, and talk with us. Let us give you our evaluation, whether it's you or it's them.
Wes, I want to make an observation, just so we're clear. The highest evolution of leadership in dentistry is when you can drive a team with associates, maybe all associates, and generate a substantial number of referrals. That's excellent work. That's somebody who has mastered this job of leadership.
All right, thanks for listening. And if you have questions or you need help with this is what we're here for. So give us a call.
Get on the phone. Thanks.